Okay, in our final section or objective here on our homework for section 5C of the textbook, we're going to talk about creating and interpreting bar and line graphs using Excel to do this. You can probably get through the Newton homework without doing this in Excel. You can probably answer the questions from the tables, but it's a good idea, and also this could perhaps be a test question that you be able to create a bar or a line graph using Excel based upon certain data. So be sure to follow along as we do this so you are able to do that just in case it is going to show up there on the final exam. So anyway, let's get to it. Okay, we're going to start off very basic here, and this may be stuff that you may well be aware of, making charts, simple charts there in Excel. Here, this particular example of a question, we have a movie theater, and they're selecting 10 movies, and they're going to play it one at a time, and then this is the number of people who attend each of the movies here. We want to create a bar graph, and we want to figure out how many of the movies had fewer than 100 attendees in a day. Sharp students will obviously realize they can simply count anything less than 100, and of course our answer is 1. Some of these things get a little more complicated, and you might want to keep track of them, especially. So let's start off very easily. Let's get our data. Put in our target. Put in our target here. And we're looking at 100 for our target. Again, we're going to use our fancy copying tool here in Excel. So let's highlight our data. Go to Insert. And we're looking at a chart. Usually there's a variety of different ways to go about doing these things, but I usually go to recommended charts, all charts. I want a column. So let's go ahead and get that created. We could label it and make it look nice and fancy, you know. But for our purposes here, we're focused on the question at hand. How many movies had fewer than 100 attendees in a day? And that's the orange bars here. But it'd be really handy, and of course this one's very easy to do, but it would be very handy to create a target line, and then we can look at it, and then we'd be communicating to our investors and other people that we'd be trying to communicate to be able to create a target line. So that's one thing we're going to do here. So we notice I clicked on the target, which was 100. Now let's go over here to chart design and change chart type. If I go down here to combo, I can change the target, which is in orange here, to a line graph. Now let's take a look at what we have. So now we have our target here of 100 movies, and going back to our original question, let's take a look at that here. Our original question was, which ones have fewer than 100? So we're looking at what we have, fewer than 100. So that one looks a little close. Let's click on it. This value is exactly 100, so we're not going to count that because we're talking about fewer than 100. We do have one right here, which is our answer. And of course, we could have looked very easily and saw that movie F only had 75 viewers, okay, or attendees to the movie. Okay, so in this next example, we're looking at music downloads for a musician here, and we have our table, and we want to create, this time we want to create a line graph. And then of course we want to answer the question which of the songs were downloaded fewer than 200 times. So let's go ahead and download our data. Okay, so we have our data here. The question said which ones were downloaded fewer than 200 times. So our target here would be 200. And remember, we're talking about a line graph. So let's just take our data here. We'll go to Insert, go to Recommended Charts, Line Data here. And there we have our information. Let's kind of zoom in here. Fewer than 200 times. That's what we're looking for here. That's one thing about these line graphs. Remember, they're point to point. So one thing we can do to kind of make this a little bit clearer is that I was looking at that. One thing we can do here is change our chart type. And let's change this line, the blue line, which is the data there. Let's change it to a line with markers. That way we can see the specific values that we're talking about. So just hovering over it in that way was a little bit confusing, as you can see. So with these markers, we're looking at our data. And then it's very important when we're talking about a line graph here that we're not talking about a curve or a line that we traditionally refer to where it's continuous. This is not continuous, right? We're only talking about from one point to the other, and we're looking about, okay, from here to here we see we're going down, but from song 2 to song 3 we're going up. So a line graph can be a little bit misleading in that sense. But with these markers, we can see that song 2 was at. So we got to be very careful with our line graphs that we count those points. So our original question was less than 200, correct? Less than 200 times. So we only have one for song 2 and the second time for song 5. And that one right there is right at 200. Right at 200. Hold on a second while I split my screen. And again, that is our answer 2, which does show up here in our graph. 1, 2. Not that one because it's right at 200. Okay, so we only have one more varying. The other ones you're going to see in this section are going to be very similar to what we've seen before. But this one is a slightly different, and you'll come across it here. We're talking about veterinarian comparing lengths in inches, and so lengths of cats. Hopefully you got some cat lovers out there. Lengths of cats and weights of cats in pounds. And I'm looking at 20 cats here. Here we have our data. And let's pay attention to what it is asking us to do. First off, in Excel, it's asking us to create a graph with a line representing the lengths. So a line representing the lengths and bars representing the weights. So we have done this before where we did a combo where we had a bar and a line graph in the same graph. But we got to be very careful which one, because you can look at our choices. So what we got to be very careful is which one, what line or bar, do we put the weight versus the length. So that's what we got to be careful for. So let's go ahead and download our data. All right, so we have our data. Let's go ahead and highlight it here. We'll go to Insert Chart, Recommended Charts, go to All Charts. Let's go ahead and put it in bar right now. We could do combo. Let's go right into that. So we want, if we remember our question, we want a line representing the lengths, and let's go ahead and put it into that way. And we want the weight in a bar chart here. Similar to that right there. So we got it. Let's split our screen here. Did I lose my? There's my cats. There's my cats. We got that. Let's take a look at what we have here. So we should have one looking like that right there. That's what we're so that is what we're talking about when we're talking about bar and line graphs in Excel.